He's tearing down the people's house. He's destroying it. It's a symbol of everything he's doing to the country. Have you ever in your life heard so much BS all at once? And this is the relevant question. Ask yourself why yesterday the White House renovation, that's the correct term, for the new ballroom, privately funded, by the way, not your money, not my money, not taxpayer money. Have you ever seen such a meltdown in your life? No, you haven't, but you have to ask yourself why this became such a big story all at once. What do we always say? You can always tell it's propaganda when the exact same lines are used at the exact same time by the same media outlets all the time. I can't stand it when good people are lied to by lying propaganda outlets, and that's exactly what's happening with this White House thing. And I'm going to tell you exactly why all of this is propaganda, but give you a good piece of ammunition to use for your misinformed but big-hearted friends that are actually buying this line of crap too, because boy, they're laying it on thick with this one. Also, New York City's next mayor is a full-on communist. That's going to happen, as it appears, and Trump is chiming in on this one. There may be hope with this one yet, though, but that's happening. They did this to themselves, and I feel I can speak on this because I have a vested interest in New York City. I told you many times I have a daughter that lives there right now, so it's not like I'm just speaking to it from afar, but it does affect all of us because New York City is the biggest, most important, hate to say it, city in our country, and it affects everything we do. And then we'll wrap it up with this. And sorry, it's such a, it's like there's a lot of politicians in the news today, but we don't determine the news, we don't make the rules, we just react to it. The former White House press secretaries were out in full force this week as well. Boy, did we dodge a bullet. Anyway, we'll get to all that, but thanks for finding me. I appreciate it. Midweek already, almost into the weekend. Thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream and the replay, all your favorite channels, networks, all that good stuff, and also the audio podcast listeners. Thanks for the downloads. Facebook folks, make sure you press follow as well. I appreciate you. All right, let's get right to it. Have you ever seen such a meltdown over a construction project in your life? But it's the people's house. Every podcaster, every blogger, all of the same cast of characters, all of the usual suspects, all out there criticizing, demolishing the East Wing of the White House. Then, of course, it gets to these two knuckleheads on Morning Joe and MSNBC.
But
yeah,
this
far different.
is
Yeah.
painful. I mean, this is historic structure.
It's history being torn to shreds. And again, is everybody? I mean, so if somebody wants to go into the White House, the next person wants to just knock down all the walls and turn it into a disco. Congress can't do anything.
It's history being destroyed. It's all right there. Now, those two knuckleheads, you knew they were going to react like that, but here's the important thing. They're told to. Now, one of the most prominent things, it came from the Washington Post article, and this was the headline. It's not his house. It's the people's house. And he's destroying it. Now, that was reposted by Hillary Clinton. Fascinating that she would be the one who would actually chime in on this. And then everybody else picked it up, and it's amazing how you saw the same wording from all the same usual suspects all day long and into today. And the first question we have to ask is why? Why was this such a massively important story to them, to the propagandists, to the people that want to lie to you? Why this one of all the things they could talk about? Why? I'll tell you why. Because they fully expected the No Kings protest from this past weekend to carry them through the next news cycle. And it fell flat on their faces, and they were desperate to find something else to pick up. That's why this happened. But more importantly, you've got some big-hearted, misinformed, but well-meaning friends in your life. They're upset about this too. This is the little piece of ammunition I want to give you to explain to them in a nice way, a little history lesson, if they want to hear it, about what's happening here with the White House. And we'll get to the irony and the hypocrisy of people like Hillary Clinton talking about the White House in just a second. But more importantly, this is what you need to know. Let's go to a little bit of history here for the White House renovations, okay? Recent history. Teddy Roosevelt, remember Teddy? He built the actual West Wing. That was Teddy Roosevelt. That wasn't in the 1700s. That wasn't when George Washington was there. Teddy Roosevelt built the West Wing. Taft made the executive office oval. William Taft. He made it oval. These are relatively recent changes. FDR, now we're getting into mid last century. FDR added the entire East Wing and included an indoor pool for himself. Therapeutics-wise, he needed that for his legs. I understand that. Truman gutted the entire White House. We're going to get into the Truman element of this in just a second because that's relevant to the whole story. Nixon added a bowling alley. But that didn't last long because that was ripped out inside, but nobody saw it. But the bowling alley was ripped out when Obama got there because he wanted a basketball court. Right. Trump's building a ballroom, taking part of the East Wing with him because it's an office building. The East Wing of the White House is the office building. No need to be heartbroken here, folks. And they're all chiming in. Oh, anybody that's ever have. Oh, and Maria Shriver was there talking about, oh, but when I was a kid, I loved to go to the East Wing. Oh, it's all about them. And they're serving you a giant dish of propaganda. Again, we'll get to the hypocrisy here in just a second of Hillary Clinton talking about this. But the Truman part is relevant to this. Again, you got some friends or somebody, your parents are upset about what they're doing to the White House. I want you to try to get them to look up something if they're willing to do it. Look up something called the Truman Reconstruction. The Truman Reconstruction happened from 1949 to 1952. What happened? If you've ever seen video, there's a lot of video on this, or just still shots of the Truman Reconstruction that started in 1949. The entire White House, to the studs, was gutted for technological purposes. They knew that telecom was very important coming in here. This thing was gutted and very much needed to make sure that it was technologically up to date for what was at the time telecom. And I think they knew in the future what was happening here, and they had some foresight to actually get this done. Work began in 1949, congressional approval, President Truman and his family residing in Blair House until completion in 1952. The construction was so intensive, Truman had to move out of the White House for a couple of years. And nobody said anything. And you're thinking, wait a minute, you said right there that he got congressional approval. Trump didn't get any congressional approval and is destroying history. It's a portion of the East Wing, again, that's going to be an office building that's being taken to expand for a ballroom for White House events, completely privately funded. Not your money, not my money, nobody's taxpayer money, but they're all there chiming in. Why? Remember the reason why and always go to it. Why is this such a big deal to them right now? All started yesterday with that Washington Post article, and they all picked up on it. All the same talking points. Because they have nothing else to criticize. That No Kings thing fell flat on its face. It didn't have any of the impact they thought it would. Now let's get to some of the characters. Maria Shriver whining about the times she had in the White House as a kid with the Kennedys. Do you know what happened reportedly with the Kennedys in the White House? We want to go to that, but let's go to Hillary Clinton, who under the Clinton administration, we all know where I'm going with this. Yeah, the blue dress, the Oval Office, Monica Lewinsky, and Bill Clinton. Do we need to mention it there? And yet she has the gall and the hypocrisy to complain about anything happening in the White House. But not only that, they actually sold out to donors the Lincoln bedroom. That started with the Clintons. Obama built his basketball court there, and God knows what else. This is all complete and total nonsense. But again, look it up for yourself and share it with whoever's complaining about this. The Truman Reconstruction. Soup to nuts, down to the studs, this thing was rebuilt for purposes to expand the White House. Just saying. All right, let's get out of that for a second. Let's talk about New York City and their new communist mayor. Well, the election's not happening yet. Oh, yes, it is. It's over. Zoran Mamdani is going to be the winner. Fascinating what's happening here, though. So here's the situation. This is why we're talking about it, because what happens in New York does affect the rest of the country. I don't want to live there either, but indirectly affects me as a Floridian now, because there's going to be a lot of the exodus. By the way, side note, the exodus has already begun. There are a ton of New Yorkers already leaving ahead of this, and it affects me. Is it going to be more crowded where I live? Yes, but the local economy is going to be even stronger because they spend a lot of money. So that's one factor. But What you hope doesn't happen is that they come here and start voting in the crap that led to what's happening in New York City, because it's coming. So you've got Mamdani way ahead in the polls, and he is going to be the next mayor of New York City. He is a communist. He's anti-Semitic. He's been called a jihadist. I wouldn't disagree with any of that personally myself. It's my own personal opinion. But you've got him, you've got Cuomo, and then you've got Curtis Sliwa. Well, now the politicians are urging Curtis Sliwa to pull out of the race, to force him out, to kick him out so that Cuomo has a chance to beat this Mamdani guy. So he's going to do it? No, he's not. And you have to admire his principles on this, but all of this means that you've got a disaster heading to that city. Here's Curtis Sliwa's response yesterday.
The elite. You see, they're trying to push me out. And they're trying to silence you. You, the hard-working people that make this city work. They haven't recognized you or come to your aid at all. The old ways have been the worst ways, but now they suddenly come to you and they want your vote. No, no, no. We mobilize. We hit the streets. You are the volunteers who are going to help me take back this city.
I'd love to see it happen, but it's not. He's not going to drop out, and he's not going to win. And in fact, here's the latest. Let's go to the odds first. Polymarket is fascinating to follow because you can bet, you can get some odds on anything, including political races. It's close to 90% this Mamdani guy is going to win this race. He's coming. He is going to be the mayor of New York, which is going to be a disaster. You know that already. Housing should be free for all, even at the expense of private property. That's a direct quote from him. We need to globalize the intifada. That's a direct quote from him, all in the past. And all of these statements, by the way, they're doing that same political thing. Well, I was younger. I didn't understand. I'd like to apologize for that. Do you really think he changed his mind? No, you don't. Here's the fascinating thing, and we all ask the questions. How can it get so bad? We knew it was a mess. The big blue cities have always been a mess, but how did they get to be so bad that this would actually happen? Because we all grew up thinking, well, they'll never have it. Yeah, they'll toy around with socialism, but they'll never actually have a full communist mayor or governor of a major area in our country. Well, here we are. Now, why? Well, this is fascinating. Something called Patriot polling. I had to look up into them, and I know the polls are always kind of iffy, but they're actually pretty accurate, apparently, over the past couple of races here nationally. Here's the breakdown on exactly why this happened, okay? Among American-born New Yorkers, so they're born in New York, they're Americans, they broke it down into their polling preferences, and they picked Cuomo at 40%, Mamdani at 31%, and Curtis Sliwa at 25%. Seems to make more sense. Hold on, they're not the only New Yorkers. Among foreign-born New Yorkers, Mamdani at 62%, Cuomo at 24%, and Curtis Sliwa at 12%. And there's your sign of unchecked, unregulated, completely out of control illegal immigration, and now voting. And that's how it gets so bad. But all based on policies that the Democrat Party have pushed forward for years and years and years. And now their major donors, their biggest donors, the wealthiest Democrat, like the limousine libs, now they're all leaving. It's a massive exodus. So what do they leave behind? Poor New Yorkers and young people and hard working class people and the old traditional Union Democrats who are left behind in the dust to suffer through this. That's what they do. You just hope wherever they move to, especially Florida, they don't vote in the same policies that led to that. Because trust me on this one, if you don't believe anything else, the exodus is happening out of that state. And it's coming. Now, this was interesting, I thought. President Trump actually made a statement about this. It's a long question. You got to sit through that. But he gets to it in what he thinks is actually going to happen. Is he going to get involved? Is he going to get involved in his home city of New York and tell Sliwa or Cuomo or to drop out or whatever to help the odds? Doesn't sound like it, but he sounds hopeful at the end of this.
Mr. President, a new poll shows that if Curtis Sliwa dropped out of the New York mayoral race, then Andrew Cuomo would only trail Mamdani by 4 points. Would you call Curtis Sliwa to drop out of the race so that can happen?
Well, I looked at the polls, and looks like we're going to have a communist as the mayor of New York. It'll be very interesting. But here's the good news. He's got to go through the White House. Everything goes through the White House. At least this White House it does.
What do you think that means? Does that mean more federal troops in New York? Nah, probably not more than what they have already now. But any approval, and they're going to watch them like a hawk. And I think there's something more to this that he can't or won't say yet. I think he's looking at this and he's saying, this would be the shining example. It has to get so bad. It has to get so bad in our biggest media market, in our biggest city in the country, for people to wake up and realize the disastrous effects of voting this stuff into office. I think that's what he's thinking. But who knows? Now, more and more videos, of course, to try to convince New Yorkers to not vote for this guy are coming out from his past, because Mamdani is a very charismatic figure. There's tons of video on him from even years back. And, of course, now he's playing that same old line of saying, well, I was younger, I didn't understand, I didn't mean it. Do you think he really changed his mind? No. Here's another example of that. This was from, I believe it's 2020.
We came here to remake this state in the image of our people.
And there you go. Now, here's the sad thing. You could have, and he's got the Globalize the Intifada video that's out there, and we can never become New Yorkers. There's that. I'm sure you've seen that video. All the hideous things that this guy's actually said. And the other one, I would arrest Netanyahu if I was ever mayor and he arrived in New York. Yeah, all that stuff, all the terrible stuff. Here's the really scary part. They've been so brainwashed, and the young voters and the propaganda has gotten to them so badly. You could have him on video doing the worst thing you could possibly imagine, killing a puppy or something on video, or murdering somebody, or saying something absolutely horrendous, and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. They're still going to vote for him anyway. And that's how we got here. So that's that. But maybe Trump's right. Maybe that's what he's thinking. It has to get so bad. A shining example of how bad things can be when you, over the decades, support these policies before things turn around. Maybe. I don't know. Just prepare for it, because it's going to look a lot different. And maybe your states are going to look a lot different as the exodus has already begun out of that city. All right, sorry to leave you with this because they're hideous. And I was reminded yesterday, because now they're out again for some reason. Why are the two former press secretaries doing so much media now? Well, one of them has a book out, Karine Jean-Pierre, and Jen Psaki just wants to talk. Boy, did we... I look at this, and as hideous as it is, sometimes you need this reminder to understand what we survived. They were both just awful. Let's go to the lady selling a book, Karine Jean-Pierre. All kinds of media. She's doing podcasts. Now, I chose this clip because this podcaster, a Democrat, wasn't even having it. Like, no one believes her. She's trying to tell him in a long-winded kind of way that Biden did way more press information. He did way more interviews than Trump. She's actually trying to sell this. Now, when she was press secretary, I understand. And you kind of have to... You got to stretch the truth to defend your president, your White House, your administration all the time. She's still talking about this, but it doesn't look like the guy is buying.
So that's number one. My job was to speak to what the decision he made in the sense of continuing, trying to lift up the policies and the legislative wins that we did have. We did have legislative wins.
Sure,
and
but he
that
didn't
is
talk about them that well, though. He couldn't talk about them. He wasn't campaigning.
No. Wait. First of all, he did talk about them. Whether it broke through or not, he did. Tim, he did talk about.
I mean, he talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. Like, he didn't do paid events.
Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're
the guy. I'm not exactly sure who that is, but he's definitely not, right-leaning. Otherwise, he never would have gotten the interview with her. He's literally rolling her eyes at her. And she's doing that same thing that she did, and it was a horrible reminder. She's doing that same thing she did as press secretary. No. Remember back in the day, as hideous as it was, and I forgot about this, how bad she was. Remember anytime anybody, even the White House press corps, which is completely biased, would try to push back on her at all? No. And then she would fold up her binder, the giant binder that grew over the years, and just walk away. She's still doing it. Oh, my God. She's just awful. But let me ask you this. Was this one, Jen Psaki, any better There's something, and I think this, and I'm sorry to leave you with this today, but we have to talk about it. There's something very, very wrong with the mindset of this middle-aged type of extreme leftist female voter, woman, citizen, resident. There's something very twisted and soulless about this person. She's takes shots for some reason. I don't know why, at J.D. Vance's wife, Usha. Why did that enter into play? She's on that hideous podcast with the hideous two broads that, just hate everything all Trump. Listen to where she goes and how low she goes on this one and why.
I think the little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like,
Agreed.
Are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you. And that he's willing to do anything to get there. And
I don't know. I have no explanation for what would cause somebody to say something that nasty about a lady she's never met, knows nothing about, and to just throw that out there. Because they still think, and I guess this is the takeaway, people like Jen Psaki still think that they have the narrative in the country, that everybody buys what they say. Every single media outlet now, no awareness whatsoever of new media, where people actually question these things, like the guy from the previous clip. None whatsoever. And by the way, as she's saying that, Usha Vance was with JD on the Middle East follow-up peace trip to Israel right now. She's with him right now. And she alleges and throws it out there that she's in some sort of a situation where she can't speak out or is threatened somehow. It calls J.D. Vance the Manchurian candidate. It's absolutely amazing. They're never going to learn. They're just not. And there's something soulless about somebody that would say like that. And there's a lot of women like that. And sorry to pick on women, but they just are mean and nasty to anybody that dares disagree with them and push back in the narrative. So there's no fixing that, like that kind of person. There's just not. But thank God we survived it. That's the main takeaway on that one. But the most important thing is you're going to hear that a lot today. They'll continue it because there's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else to push back on. All their talking points are falling flat. Why are they pushing back and having this implosion meltdown over the White House renovation at the East Wing and building the ballroom with private money? Because they have nothing else. And tell them about the Truman Project, 1949 to 1952. Show them that one, what was done to the White House for improvements. That'll end any argument pushed up against you on this. Thanks for finding me. Make it a wicked awesome midweek. Thank you so much for the replay follows and views as well, and the audio podcast listens. Just press subscribe. Spotify, you have to press follow. Facebook people, make sure you press follow too, so you know when the replay is there. With all that said, make it a wicked awesome Wednesday. Don't let this stuff get you down. It's going to be good. Trust me on this one. I'll talk to you tomorrow.